It's Thursday, October 24th here in Korea, and these are the top stories at this hour. The prime ministers of South Korea and Japan see eye to eye on the need to mend strained Seoul-Tokyo relations through dialogue. President's letter to Abe, which reportedly stresses an early solution to bilateral issues, was also relayed. North Korea's foreign ministry says leader Kim Jongun maintains a good relationship with U.S. President Trump based on trust. It also says it'll wait and see if Washington wisely ends this year. South Korea's economy grew at a slower than expected pace in the third quarter by 0.4%. BOK Governor Lee Ju-yeol says chances look slim for a 2% growth this year. A cutting-edge high-tech drone is deployed to explore every inch of South Korea's easternmost Dokdo Island to commemorate Dokdo Day. NEWSCENTER begins now. Hello and welcome to Arirang News Center, live from Seoul. I'm Han-daeun. We begin in Tokyo, where South Korean Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon held much anticipated talks with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. The two agreed that the current soured Seoul-Tokyo relations can no longer be left neglected and that the ties should be mended through dialogue. A letter from President Moon was also relayed to the Japanese leader. Our Kim Jongun has our top story.
South Korea and Japan agreed on the need for a breakthrough in the current stalled relations between the two countries on Thursday. Seoul's first Vice Foreign Minister Cho Se-young, who took part in the closed-door meeting, said that South Korean Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon expressed Seoul's willingness to mend ties with Tokyo, and so did the Japanese Prime Minister.
The prime ministers of the two nations agreed that they cannot leave the current strained ties unaddressed as they are important neighbors.
He also delivered a personal letter written by President Moon Jae-in, which included a congratulatory message over Japanese Emperor Naruhito's enthronement and the need to work together to address issues of conflict. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe expressed his gratitude and agreed to facilitate dialogue at various levels, including discussions on North Korea.
The two prime ministers also agreed on the importance of seeking bilateral cooperation and trilateral coordination involving the United States to tackle North Korea's nuclear issue.
During the talks, which lasted for 20 minutes, Prime Minister Abe also stressed that the two Asian neighbors should stay faithful to their 1965 treaty, which Tokyo claims has normalized ties and settled all issues of compensation for victims of colonial rule. Lee said that Seoul has been respecting the treaty just as Tokyo did and will continue to do so, expressing hopes that the two sides can continue to overcome their differences. However, regarding the possibility of a Moon-Abe summit, the first Vice Foreign Minister said that such specific discussions were not included during the talks, but did not rule out the possibility of such a summit. Kim Jongun, Arirang News.
Although there was no mention in today's meeting of a summit between President Moon and Prime Minister Abe, South Korea's foreign ministry apparently thinks the meeting did help narrow the gap. But could there be a summit meeting between the two leaders sometime soon? Our Shin Se-min has some clues.
Not a single mention of the next high-level meeting between South Korea and Japan from the face-to-face between the two prime ministers on Thursday. But the general consensus is that the talks may lead to more active discussions between the two sides. South Korean Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa on the same day said that while the two sides still have differences, they seem to have narrowed the gap to a certain extent and said they now have a deeper understanding of each other. She added that the South Korean government will continue its efforts through dialogue and discussion. And with the leaders, President Moon Jae-in and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe showing strong determination to work out their relations before the end of their terms, it is likely that such a meeting may take place sometime within the year, especially with some major dates lined up. One of those dates is the termination of the bilateral intelligence sharing pact known as GSOMIA, which falls on November 22nd. Observers say the leaders may want to find a breakthrough before that security pact expires. And the two leaders may cross paths on the sidelines of a series of global events next month. They include the ASEAN +3 meeting in Thailand and the APEC economic leaders meeting in Chile, and the Korean president's attendance has been confirmed by the APEC organizer earlier this month. The presidential aide earlier this week had said that President Moon could possibly meet with Japanese Prime Minister on the sidelines of the APEC summit, which may even be attended by the U.S. president. But the official said that meeting will only be possible if Japan takes some visible measures on the issue of Korean victims of forced labor during the Japanese occupation of Korea and steps to roll back its decision on export controls. If that is the case, that face-to-face between Moon and Abe would be their first since September last year, when they met on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. 신세민, Arirang News.
North Korea's foreign ministry says leader Kim Jongun maintains a good relationship with U.S. President Trump based on trust. It also repeated its call for the U.S. to come back to the nuclear talks with a different approach by the end of the year. Our Oh Jung-hee has more.
North Korea has again urged the United States to come up with a new and creative approach for their denuclearization talks by the end of 2019. On Thursday, North Korea's state-run Korean Central News Agency carried a statement from Kim Jongun, advisor to the North's foreign ministry. Kim said the friendship and trust between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and U.S. President Donald Trump is still strong. However, he claimed Washington's policymakers remain hostile toward the North with, quote, ideological prejudice and Cold War-era thoughts. Saying where there's a will, there's a way, the advisor stressed Pyongyang wants to see how wisely Washington will act through the end of the year. The statement comes 3 weeks after working-level negotiations between the two sides collapsed in Stockholm. The North Korean side walked out, with Pyongyang's envoy Kim Myung-gil stating that the U.S. came to the table with no new calculation. It's too early to tell what North Korea has in mind with Thursday's statement, but some watchers suggest the North may be wanting to hold another Kim-Trump summit before the end of the year, as the statement highlights the personal ties between Kim and Trump. Some also believe Pyongyang is showing a willingness to sit down for another round of working-level talks with the U.S. within this year. On Wednesday, Sweden's special envoy to the Korean Peninsula said his country will invite North Korea and the U.S. to negotiate again at a time and place that suits both sides. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
The last time South Korea recorded annual growth below 2% was during the 2008 global financial crisis, when it posted GDP growth of just 0.8%. With third quarter growth falling slower than expected, the economy could be on track for the slowest growth in about a decade. Our Kim Hae-sung has more.
South Korea's economy grew 0.4% on quarter in the July to September period. That's lower than the 1% growth tallied in the second quarter and the market forecast of around 0.6%.
Private consumption increased 0.1%. Government consumption went up 1.2%.
Private consumption, which generates about half of Korea's GDP, slowed from a 0.7% rise in the second quarter to 0.1%, making it the slowest pace of growth in 3.5 years. The Bank of Korea attributed slower private consumption to falling spending on semi-durable goods like clothing. Government spending increased in the third quarter, but its contribution to South Korea's GDP growth fell 1 percentage point compared to the second quarter. Facilities investment increased 0.5%, but construction investment tumbled 5%.
Third quarter GDP growth was weak due to a base effect, the economy having grown 1% in the previous quarter. Also, the government's fiscal spending weakened in the third quarter. Consumer sentiment and corporate investment were weighed down by the U.S.-China trade dispute and Japan's export restrictions.
Exports have fallen for 10 consecutive months since last November amid slowing global trade. But on quarter, exports increased 4% on improving shipments of semiconductors and autos. Imports grew around 1%. The central bank pointed to changes in the U.S.-China trade dispute, domestic consumption, and the government's fiscal spending as factors that could affect growth going forward. The local economy is unlikely to reach Bank of Korea's growth target of 2.2% this year, and it'll have to expand by 1% in the fourth quarter to hit 2%. Kim Jongun, Arirang News.
President Moon has unveiled a job creation plan to revitalize the local economy in Gunsan, located in North Jeollado province, by expanding the electric car business. Mid-sized and venture companies will be leading the project at the site that was once home to some of Korea's largest companies. Our Park Hee-jun tells us more.
A city devastated after the exit of major South Korean companies will get a chance to rebound as a leader in electric cars.
지역의 신산업 육성 의지, 노사민정의 대타협, 그리고 정부의 지원이 더해져 군산은 전기차 메카로 우뚝 서게 될 것입니다.
At a ceremony in Gunsan on Thursday, President Moon Jae-in unveiled his roadmap for the regional job creation project in the southwestern port city in Jeollabuk-do province. The project aims to revive the local economy and create high-quality jobs by establishing an electric car cluster.
이제 군산과 새만금 일대에 전기차 클러스터가 새롭게 조성되고 2022년까지 4,122억 원의 투자와 함께 1,900여 개의 직접 고용 일자리가 만들어집니다. 가동을 멈춘 자동차 공장에서 전기차 생산 라인이 다시 힘차게 돌아가게 될 것입니다.
The Gunsan economy has suffered since GM Korea shut down its factory there last year, which used to generate around a quarter of the city's gross production. That led to 2,000 people losing their jobs and many stores going out of business, and that wasn't long after Hyundai Heavy Industries suspended its shipyard in 2017. The cluster will be set up in GM Korea's old factory, now owned by Korean auto parts supplier Myeongsin. Myeongsin and other mid-sized and venture companies, including Edison Motors, tend to produce 170,000 electric cars, buses, and trucks. With the city already home to 800 auto parts subcontractors, a test site for self-driving cars, and an institute for developing related technology, President Moon expressed confidence that Gunsan will be able to rapidly advance as a leader in the industry. This is the sixth regional job creation proposal following those in Gwangju, Miryang, Daegu, Gumi, and Hwaesong. According to the Blue House, the six projects are expected to attract nearly $2 billion of investment and 5,200 direct employment positions. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in has proposed that South Korea and Spain enhance their cooperation in overseas construction, the digital economy, and renewable energy. The president made the comments this morning at a bilateral business forum in Seoul with King Felipe VI of Spain. President Moon highlighted the immense potential the two countries have in joint construction projects overseas, with Korea's strength in construction and financing, and Spain in the design and management of facilities.
양국은 올해 초 해외 건설 분야에서 중남미, 아시아 지역의 공동 진출을 촉진하고 철도 항공을 비롯한 교통 분야에서 공기업 간 협력을 확대하기로 했습니다.
President Moon also said the two countries will have great synergy in the digital economy. He said they both have outstanding ICT infrastructure and can mutually prosper through partnerships in 5G-based services like autonomous cars and smart cities. They'll also work together in battling climate change by working to replace fossil fuels with renewable energy. A two-day South Korea-Russia joint military committee meeting sparked by a Russian military aircraft intrusion into South Korean airspace wrapped up today. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff has requested Russia to stop intruding into Korea's air defense identification zone, but it did not elaborate on Russia's response. A South Korean military official says the two sides have also agreed to continue their joint efforts to prevent accidental military conflicts and promote mutual cooperation. The issue of setting up a hotline to exchange flight information was also discussed. October 25th marks Dokdo Day, commemorating South Korea's easternmost islands of Dokdo. It's a place that's special to Korean people's hearts and is known for its natural beauty and biodiversity. And to better understand and preserve these beautiful islands, the Cultural Heritage Administration has implemented cutting-edge technology. Our Lee Min-sun files this report from Dokdo.
Located some 200 kilometers from the Korean peninsula, Dokdo, the easternmost territory of South Korea, is home to more than 280 species of plants, birds, and insects, and 330 species of marine life.
The entirety of Dokdo is designated as a natural monument, boasting beautiful scenery and almost unrivaled biodiversity.
Because of its unique geographical characteristics, Dokdo has been more or less unaffected by human activity, allowing it to maintain its stunning natural balance. The spindle tree and 울릉국화 can be seen on Dongdo, one of two main islets of Dokdo. The topography of the island is slowly changing because of erosion and weathering caused by strong winds and harsh weather. That's why collecting detailed data over time is important to prevent any possible damage and problems. To better study every corner of the island, the National Research Institute of Cultural Heritage deployed a drone with a LiDAR system that can take 360-degree images and videos using near-infrared ray lasers and even collect data of the geographical features beneath the trees and plants. The new system saves time and money as it takes only about 4 hours to scan the whole islands, a task which would take up to a year if done without the technology.
We can collect data using LiDAR drones at any time and any place and can deal with any sudden problems. We first use this cutting-edge device on Dokdo because it's a difficult area to access and we can obtain accurate data in a short time.
The newly introduced laser drone can also be useful for conducting ecological studies of the nearby Ulleungdo Island. It is the natural habitat of junipers and has a population of 울릉국화 and thymes in Arirang Basin. The LiDAR drone will be used to shoot 11 natural reserves and 113 scenic spots across the country. The institute is planning to deploy the LiDAR drone once a year to collect data from these places over time and use the collected data for not only academic purposes but to create content for practical use. Lee Min-sun, Arirang News, Dokdo Island.
Culture ministers and senior officials from South Korea and the Association of Southeast Asian Nations have agreed to work together on boosting cultural exchanges. The South Korean culture minister was speaking this morning at a meeting with the ASEAN side. Take a listen.
Through cultural exchanges and cooperation, South Korea and ASEAN are trying to understand one another, find joy together, and share economic prosperity.
The meeting was held in Gwangju at the Asian Culture Center, where ministers agreed to explore various cultural joint projects to provide more opportunities for future generations. President Moon also sent a congratulatory message in which he expressed hope for cultural resources and technology from Korea and ASEAN to come together to preserve heritage and grow their ties. Also today, the Seoul Metropolitan Government hosted a Mayors Forum on climate change, gathering mayors of cities from all corners of the world. They emphasized the need to take prompt action to deal with climate change. Our Kim Jongun was there.
Representatives of 37 cities from 25 nations were in central Seoul on Thursday for a special forum on climate change. Local governments from around the world, including the Seoul Metropolitan Government, have gathered under one roof to discuss the importance of tackling climate change at local governmental level. The Seoul Mayors Forum on Climate Change 2019 highlighted how cities can use local-level practical approaches to improve the environment.
Rather than top-down, cookie-cutter, if you will, philosophies, cities often pursue bottom-up, locally designed approaches that accommodate the diverse economic, political, and social structures that hold our communities together. And it's this knowledge and this practice that I think in many ways is what is the backbone of the innovation that we're now experiencing. from the local level.
He also emphasized that reducing the emissions of the top 5 cities of each particular country could account for a significant reduction of national emissions. The mayor of the Seoul metropolitan government asked local governments of other cities to do more to overcome the current climate crisis.
As key implements of climate actions, we encouraged cities and local governments around the world to adopt climate emergency declarations at councils and
Actions taken by cities to improve their environment are not only for future generations, but also benefit cities right now by improving air quality and reducing traffic congestion and road injuries.
Well, we know that there are many jobs, for example, in making buildings more energy efficient and also the installation of solar panels and photovoltaics. So these are really jobs-rich new industries.
Small cities are playing leadership roles and working with other cities to tackle climate change through voluntary action. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
For the next 2 weeks, the southeastern city of Busan will be commemorating the UN soldiers who defended South Korea in the Korean War. It's the first ever UN weeks, the first being Appreciation Week and the second Commemoration Week. There'll be events taking place throughout the city. Earlier today, there was the 74th UN Day ceremony at the UN Memorial Cemetery, attended by around 140 veterans and the relatives of fallen heroes. In his congratulatory speech, the mayor of Busan said South Koreans have passed down an appreciation for the UN soldiers' sacrifices from generation to generation, an appreciation that will only deepen with time. Today, October 24th, is United Nations Day, a day to celebrate the UN's efforts to build global peace and cooperation. And at a forum held by a UN agency and Arirang TV, an expert emphasized the need for stronger cooperation between all actors in this rapidly changing digital society. Our Oh Soo-young has this report.
All sectors of society need to play a role to ensure no one is left behind amid disturbances and changes brought by the digital revolution. In an interview with Arirang TV, Dr. David Horan, a researcher at the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, stressed the need for sturdier partnerships within and between countries to achieve the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals adopted in 2016.
Because we're at the beginning of, a digital revolution, but that's going to take off. We need in place social safety nets, good governance structures.
Under the mantra of leaving no one behind, the UN's SDGs aim to eliminate extreme poverty and hunger, achieve low-carbon economies, as well as peaceful and just societies and ensure human rights for all. But to bring about transformative steps towards these goals, collaboration is needed between multiple sectors and interest groups, as well as governments. Horan says governments should help encourage an effective bottom-up approach by encouraging their citizens, businesses and academia to take part in initiatives for sustainable development.
They're actually key to doing this. They provide the legitimacy. If, like a lot of organizations who should be involved in partnerships to achieve transformation, they probably don't have the resources. So you need to set up some type of, almost like a research grant scheme that enables those organizations to participate in partnerships.
A recent UN report highlights the use of scientific evidence-based data and tools to keep track of progress and enhance policy-making to advance the SDGs. South Korea has been using open government data to improve the lives of citizens and also help them develop solutions to societal problems. Examples include a voting app on city policies and opening up a big data center to encourage startups. Experts say these cases could be strong examples of encouraging bottom-up action to induce new value creation to advance sustainable development. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, Incheon.
South Korea has been recognized on the global stage for its favorable conditions for starting and running a business. According to the Doing Business 2020 rankings by the World Bank, South Korea was placed 5th out of 190 countries, remaining in the top 5 for the 6th year in a row. And it was the highest ranked country in the G20. Korea was recognized for its easier contract system and ease of getting electricity. It also showed some improvement on taxation, but scores for starting a business fell from last year due to increased regulations. New Zealand, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Denmark made up the rest of the top 5. South Korea's exports of oil products have declined for a second straight quarter because of the U.S.-China trade war. The Korea Petroleum Association said today that Korean refiners shipped some 127 million barrels from July to September, down 1% from the previous year. From April to June, shipment volume fell nearly 6%. That was the first time growth had stopped in 6 years. The association said there's been lower demand for oil due as the trade war slows down the global economy. The rising unemployment rate among young Koreans is affecting the entire nation. As the government tries to tackle the problem, our Kim Jongun tells us how some provincial governments are finding ways to help young job seekers.
Korea's Jeollanam-do province has put together a job exhibition at the Yeosu Expo site to provide opportunities for young people to find work.
I got to learn more about the youth support policy by the Ministry of Employment and Labor. I also found out about various career programs here. I think it's going to help me a lot.
And the exhibition also helped employers find the right candidates for the job.
When we go through the recruitment process, accepting online applications is the normal way to do that. But there's a limit. So for us to come here and actually meet the applicants face to face, I think it's a more effective way.
The exhibition invited some 34 Korean companies, including 8 from overseas, with the help of this year's World Korean Business Convention.
The Overseas Korean Foundation provides financial support through the Korean Business Youth Internship. So it's giving young Koreans an opportunity to go out into the world. For us, it's a chance to get to hire promising Korean job seekers. That's why it's a win-win policy.
Along with other booths set up for job consultations, this virtual reality technology gives you a taste of an actual job interview. Job seekers can put on the headgear and go through a fake job interview to practice before the real on-site interview. A total of 90 people are expected to be hired by the end of Thursday's 3-hour exhibition. Kanyong, Arirang News, Yeosu.
The Korea Foundation is hosting Public Diplomacy Week, an event for the public to learn how diplomats interact with the people in the countries where they work. Visitors to Public Diplomacy Week can attend seminars, TED-style talks, and live performances where they can learn about careers in the field and other opportunities. It's free of charge at Dongdaemun Design Plaza in central Seoul. Experts such as the former U.S. ambassador to South Korea, Mark Lippert, will be sharing their knowledge and insights. This coming Sunday marks the 100th anniversary of South Korea filming its first movie. And here's our Won Jung-hwan for our part 2 of our special series to commemorate a century of South Korean cinema.
Korea cinema was first born at this theater in 1919 with a premiere of the country's first movie, Fight for Justice. Now 100 years later, no movies are screened here anymore, but the cinema has become a museum dedicated to the history of the film industry. Dansongsa, located at the intersection of Jongno Samga and downtown Seoul, is welcoming visitors, only this time it's for the purpose of introducing the history of South Korea's film industry. When it opened as South Korea's first motion picture house in 1907, Dansongsa was the country's hottest cinema. But over the last century, the cinema has faced crisis after crisis, the biggest in the late 1990s amid the opening of big multiplexes by South Korea's entertainment giants. It tried to reopen as a multiplex in 2005, but couldn't stay afloat. The place was closed for years, but a museum was built to educate people how the South Korean film industry's 100-year-old journey. Legendary director Kim Jongun remembers the days he spent at Dansongsa.
When the movie 서편제 premiered here and got big, I was always on the second floor of this historic building to watch the crowds coming in. At that time, I sometimes wondered how stupid I was, but now I think of it, it was one of the biggest gifts of my career.
The museum, which is located below ground level, has more than 5,000 pieces that represents the history of the South Korean film industry, including original posters, scripts, and filming equipment. It has a memorial zone for directors, actors, and actresses, and people can also see an original photograph of the newly constructed theater in 1934, after it was burned down during Japan's colonial rule of the peninsula. To preserve history, it has left one theater inside for visitors to watch classic films for free on special occasions. The Tanseongsa Cinema History Hall will focus on educating those interested in films, and for that purpose, the organizers plan to host free group viewings for students once every week. 원정환, 아리랑 뉴스.
It was a cool and breezy afternoon in Seoul. Let's get more updates from our Michelle Park at the Weather Center. Michelle, good evening.
Dan, today is Hangang on the traditional calendar here in Korea, which represents the first appearance of frost, meaning the end of fall and time to prepare for the arrival of winter. But like you said, today we had a warm afternoon. Now, meanwhile, Jeju and the eastern parts of the nation continue to see some rain. Now, the rain will have dissipated for Jeju tonight, whereas the eastern regions can expect a bit more until tomorrow morning. And Friday's weather is expected to be similar to today. Now, rain-free with a moderate amount of cloud cover and mild daytime highs, which is perfect weather to have as we finish off the week. Now, checking out the ratings for tomorrow, we will most likely to kick off the morning in the teens. Seoul at 13 degrees Celsius, while Busan hits up to 16, Jeju at 17 degrees. Like usual, we have a big jump into our afternoon, rising up within 21 and 23 degrees Celsius for most places. Now, starting Saturday, there will be an inflow of cold air from the north, which will plunge down our readings and make it a lot chillier than usual. Now, I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
And that does it for this edition of Arirang News. From all of us here at Arirang, thank you for watching. Stick around for News in Depth coming up in just a few minutes.